You're darn right.
It's about to get real with Troy O's. My
Things
brother
great.
from another mother, Troy O's, ladies and gentlemen. How we doing, brother?
Are we live?
We're live right now. We're live.
Welcome.
We're going live.
Might adjust this camera just a smidgen. Let me just 1 second.
What's up, good looking?
How's that? Let's see. Oh, that's not going to work.
Oh, you're fine.
How's that?
You're good, man.
Oh, perfect. Now I can kind of glance down and see us. Daryl, how the heck are you, my friend?
I'm doing great, man.
I've been watching you.
An opportunity to spend a couple of days with Mr. Frank Kern. Holy cow.
Oh, that's good stuff. That's high level.
Mind-blowing stuff, man. But let's dive in on you, man. I want to talk about what you've been up to, humanizing, optimization, the brain stuff you've been doing, all the cool ninja mind stuff you've been doing, and the programming you're working on for people. So tell me more about
that. Sounds great, brother. Where do you want to start? I did put out there on Facebook that we are that we're going to get real and we're going to go behind the curtain. And like you and I've talked so many times before, Daryl, that just because people, they look good, they smell good, they say all the right things, doesn't mean that they're not human beings having a life. And so many people want to just share all the great stuff that happens in their life, and they put up the fancy, cute memes on Facebook. The reality is the majority of people, most people are really hurting. They're having a hard time. Our society does not, it's not designed for people to live their most fully juicy life. Because, hey, if you are content and you're happy with your life, you can't be sold anything. And so like you and I talk about how all commercials from the time we were little tiny kids in front of Sesame Street, clear back then, it was saying, Daryl, you're close, but you're not quite there. But if you ate Cocoa Puffs, then you'd be there. And then as we get older, it's Rolexes and cars and houses and clothes. And it's just, I think it's really created an epidemic where last year, for the first time, drug overdose, not heart attacks, not diabetes, drug overdose is the #1 cause of death in this country. And I think that's because people just are trying to fill a void that they cannot be filled externally. And so just like you and I work together and the work that you do, you help people go where it always has been. It's within and doing that inner journey work. So I'm excited to get to share, what I know and dive right into this thing. So let's roll, brother.
Let's talk about that for a second. The #1 is drug overdose. Now, these drug overdoses from prescription medications, or this is from like bad drugs that people are taking that they bought out of like somebody's bathtub somewhere?
Great question. So the challenge we've got today is you would think drug overdose. That means that illicit drugs. It must mean methamphetamine, heroin overdoses. No, it is. We've got a drug dealer on every corner in this country now. It's called, and again, I'm not labeling. I'm just telling the truth. Walgreens, Rite Aid, these drugstores and these opiates that these young men and women are coming back from overseas. That's a whole demographic there in and of itself. These people coming back from overseas with opiate addictions, and they're being treated with this stuff, chronic pain that is welling up in individuals because of a poor lifestyle. The standard American diet, SAD, is sad. And so people are being prescribed opiates for all kinds of chronic pain. And now, if you've noticed for me, and I'm speaking for myself, how pathetic when I occasionally glance at television when I'm at someone's home and a commercial comes on for opioid constipation. It's not okay what's going on in the country. So most of these deaths have really peaked because of the overprescription of opioids to people who could heal their bodies and be pain-free without them.
So help me understand, break it down like Barney style. What is an opiate?
Well, you've all heard of, maybe not. There's Oxycontin, oxycodone. There is Suboxone. If you've heard the song by Macklemore, if you've not heard the song by Macklemore, do a search for Macklemore. I forget the name of the song, but he talks about subs. They're talking about Suboxone. This is what's being prescribed for anxiety, for pain, and it's not happening from it is happening by your kids' friends, because they're getting them from their parents or their grandparents, and they're sharing them. So that's what I mean by opioids, opiates, Oxycontin, oxycodone, Norcos, those types of pain relievers and painkillers. are just that. They're killers.
So these,
but Daryl, let me be clear.
But I get this from my doctor. I mean, these doctors are prescribing these things. But right. I mean, you're not a doctor, right? I mean, how are you able to speak on this? I mean, where do you get the information that like supports this?
So, you know, and that's the thing that I hope in this conversation that it's important. I was very, you know, I would get on a soapbox and I would just jam information down people's throats, and that shame on me, because my role, what I choose today, is to be in wellness and to communicate in a way that more people can listen and hear. And so I'm really against nothing. What I am for is for people getting great information so they can do their own research. And so what's happened in the country is I was taught by a mentor to ask two questions. How do you know that? And what's the motive? How do you know that? And what's the motive? Because if somebody's giving you information, you know, there's generally a motive and there's a reason. And so when we're constantly told, well, put it this way, Lipitor was a multi-billion-dollar patent the year that the patent ran out. Multi-billion-dollar patent, right? So why would somebody prescribe Lipitor for somebody with like cholesterol issues rather than just say, hey, stop eating wheat? Stop eating wheat, cut down on your sugar. Wheat inflames your arterial walls, and sugar scrapes the sides of the arterial walls, creates abrasions, and then good healthy cholesterol, because it takes cholesterol for our endocrine system, testosterone, estrogen, all the things that make us men and women to operate optimally, requires cholesterol. Cholesterol goes through an inflamed, abrased arterial wall and says, whoa, let's fix that. And it packs on some cholesterol to cover it up and heal it. But when you're in a chronic state of inflammation and abrasion, what happens? Cholesterol builds up, and now you've got blockages.
And where'd you learn all that, Troy? I mean, obviously, you sound like a doctor. I mean,
I sound like a doctor. Disclaimer: I am not a doctor. So I've learned this stuff through experience, and
when you say experience, like what type of experience?
Well, I was blessed with curiosity as a really young kid.
How young are we talking here?
All three. As long as I can remember.
As long as you remember, he's got a big curious George, you know? It was like guy with a yellow hat walking around, right?
Yep. And I started noticing certain things that adults would say. And then I would identify down the road later that it was a complete fallacy. And I don't know if it was intended or unintended or possibly both. I started questioning the people in authority and started really understanding how things happen, how we're directed and easily molded, and kind of like there is a puppeteer. So as you study some history, the equivalent of Times Square and billboards and commercials, back in Rome, the commercials were giant statues. And they weren't giant statues of the blacksmith. They were giant statues of Marcus Aurelius, one of the 5 great leaders. That's a good billboard for a good man. But the majority of these people, I shouldn't say the majority. It's safe to say that some tyrants got big billboards in the form of statues made for them. And they were giant and bigger than everybody else.
I remember going through Iraq, and we had statues everywhere, Saddam Hussein, and pictures everywhere, and all kind of symbolism. They do the same. Yeah. I mean, that was only a few years ago. I mean, you're talking about hundreds of years ago. So the stuff hasn't changed.
No, before electronics and before iPhones and TVs and all that good stuff, you had streets and people were out actually walking around.
No.
Yeah, go figure. They actually use a feed.
They weren't like walking around like this.
No. And then they would see these giant billboards.
They're not staring at their iPad. So.
Right, totally. And so subtly, but very profoundly, they were being told, we're bigger than you and you need us. And so now that's converted into an electronic billboard and electronic media. And by design, the way we are wired, and Daryl, you are the master at this with language, neuro-linguistic programming. You understand how the brain works. That we're very predictable because we work a certain way, right? And when you understand how we work, then you can actually manipulate yourself or others. And that's the challenge. When you've got more social psychologists, people who understand how the brain and human behavior operates, when you have more social psychologists working for Facebook and for Nabisco, you've got a problem.
Whoa. Right? Tell us about that.
So when they put electrodes on a person's brain and say, eat this Dorito, and they eat the Dorito and they watch and see what parts of the brain lights up. And then when they see the part that's really addictive and causes craving, light up, put more of that in there.
Oh, wow.
Right. So how is that helpful to anybody?
That's why I can't only have one Dorito.
You can't have one Dorito.
The bag's gone.
Lights up a part of the brain that creates cravings. And that's where it begins. So when we talk about addiction, and to answer your question, Daryl, that's really where my journey began. I had this curiosity very, very young. And then I got into life. I got into kindergarten. And I went from having magic experiences out on 5 acres with our farm animals and the butterflies and just life and just the way that the flow of the wind and the clouds and the canals, and it was magic. I go into kindergarten, all of a sudden, you're redheaded and got freckles. You ain't cool. What? You're not wearing the right color cuff skins today. And so I started beginning to kind of internalize those things like I wasn't enough. And I don't think I'm alone in this. I work with a lot of people who have created labels for themselves, told themselves stories that they're not enough. And that's perfect by design, because guess what? When you don't feel like you're enough, you can be sold anything. And that's what happened.
Wow.
So today it's food, it's shopping, chronic shopping, overspending, which when you're taking stacks of money or plastic, it's not paper and it's not credit. It's not plastic. That's your life. That's time you spend away from your family and things that you could be doing that's joyful to earn that money to go buy things. So I think that there's a huge inherent challenge and problem within our society today. And that's what happens. People go from Doritos to shopping to sex to, oh my goodness, grandma's got this, got some back pain, and she's got these little magic pills. And that's exactly what's happening. These kids are raiding grandparents and parents' medicine cabinets, and they're dying. Bottom line is they're dying. And it's creating an epidemic within our country that is, I tell you what, when you have an opiate or any type of an addiction, especially like that, it's not a Dorito addiction, it's an opioid addiction. They know, just like tobacco, if they can get a young person to start chewing or smoking at a very young age, the chances of them ever quitting are slim to not going to happen.
Wow.
Now, it's not, slow cancer death, but we're talking about people, they're at a potluck on a Sunday, they go home and ease some pain, and on Monday they're being taken to the morgue. Wow. And that's what's happening today.
That's pretty scary. What was in that potluck that they killed him?
The green Jello. The green Jello.
Your mom's green Jello. Stay away from
Yellow number 5. Yellow number 5. It's so yeah, Daryl. I could just really take up the entire hour, but I want you to be able to ask. You know me well. You and I are peers and friends. You're a mentor of mine, and so I want you to go ahead and be able to ask any question you need to ask, so that
gloves are off, guys. You just heard it. The gloves are off.
Yeah.
So Troy, when was the first entrepreneur experience you remember having? Like the first thing you remember around money, where you started out as an entrepreneur, and you're like, whether you're a young kid or maybe older, what was the first thing you remember?
I remember really vividly, and I know it was before the 4th grade. I know it was younger than that, but the one that I can really remember is standing in, it was at Indian Creek School on the grass, looking at all the kids. And I remember that I wanted to get a bike. I wanted a bike. I was having a hard time getting my parents to realize how important a bike was for me. And I remember thinking, wow, I've got lunch money in my pocket, and I know that all those kids have lunch money in their pocket. What can I do? How can I tell them a story? Can I tell them a joke? How do I get each one of them to give me a quarter?
That's awesome.
That's how it was, man. So how'd I do it?
Yeah.
You have to split test. So telling jokes, telling stories. And I got pretty good at it.
108 split test, a book.
Split test the stories.
Yeah, you gave him 108 split test book.
So I would get so this is horrible. This is horrible. So in the 5th grade, there's a friend, I won't name his names, but I got that kid. I was like, look, if I can get him to eat a fly, will you give me a quarter? So I didn't tell him that I was getting paid for it, but I talked him into eating a fly. So I'm not saying I use my superpowers always for good, man. I was kind of on the dark side. So he ate the fly. I got some money and life was good.
Nice. Did you cut him in on the deal?
Oh, no.
Oh, man. Did you let him ride the bike?
Well, he wasn't getting the bike, man. This was in the 5th grade. I already got the bike by that time.
Got it.
But not all adventures were profitable. When Mount St. Helens exploded, some of us, who are in our 40s remember when Mount St. Helens exploded. And I thought it was awesome, man, because I was so into volcanoes and nature. And there wasn't a lot of any volcano or volcanic ash here in Idaho. But over at my cousin's house in Portland, in Astoria, Washington, there was like feet of it, like literally. And so I got buckets on a vacation of Mount St. Helens ash, brought it back to Idaho, and I had these little pill bottles and little cups, and I filled them all full of Mount St. Helens ash and put prices and sat out on the street. And that's when I realized that location matters. We live in the country, man. But I sat there. I was like, woo.
You sat there and like you're just watching for cars to come. Nobody came.
Yeah, and I didn't understand. I hadn't worked with guys who understood the call-in yet. Like, hey, whoa, check this out.
Yeah.
I just sat there and stared and daydreamed, and I still have bottles of that Mount St. Helens ash.
It's still in the garage. Sorry.
Somewhere.
How long ago was that?
When that, early 80s, really early 80s.
So you had these bottles in there for 40 years now. I mean, so if you guys need some aged Mount St. Helens ash, Troy's garage is probably the only place on the planet you're going to be able to get it.
We could make supplements.
Stuff, right?
Yeah, that's right. Oh, yeah, I've got, there's only a few things that I've really carried around from home to home, year after year, and that is a box of magazines, famous monsters of filmland. I've got my box of magazines, Fangoria magazines, because I really loved Hollywood film effects. And I've got my original kit of blood and gore and liquid latex, and then books. I've got a lot of books, and really those are the things that are meaningful.
You're taking your skills to a whole nother level. You had been at the point where you're making $30,000 to $50,000. Was it a week? You said
it was a week.
It was a week, right?
Yeah.
You took that and you rode that all the way to the bottom, right?
Yeah, yeah. All that money to the bottom. That was the greatest gift I had, man. Was losing all that, man. Getting rid of it.
Tell us about that story. About what it was. What did you find out at that point in time? Because it was being at the right time and place a little bit, right? And what you were doing. So tell about that and what it is. Because there's a lot of people out there where they think, oh, I've got this great business idea, or they have this great product. But the other side of the coin is they spend all their time thinking about that. They don't focus on the business where it comes to marketing. Like you realize, like, hey, I'm a marketing company that happens to sell, Mount St. Helens ash, right? I'm a marketing company that happens to sell a book or an iPhone or whatever it is, right? Like Apple is a marketing company that their end product is an iPhone.
Yes.
Right. What was that process for you, and what were you doing at that point in time?
Okay. So I'll make a long story. I'll compress it. So you will fast forward from kindergarten and feeling outcast to some inventions I made of myself to survive society and to survive home life and all that stuff. I have a wonderful family. They had their own stuff, and I created labels and an invention of myself to survive it. And I truly, and I know this for a fact, I'm an artist. I'm an artist entrepreneur, and I love to learn and I love to teach. It just makes me feel amazing when I'm learning great things and I get to share that and I watch people's lives change. That turns me on.
Why does that matter so much to you?
I don't know. It's just the way it is,
You can't answer like that.
Well, I don't think it's good or bad. I don't think that.
Nobody said it had to be good or bad, but what drives you to be that artist entrepreneur? Where does that come from for you?
I think it's from, they always called me a daydreamer, and I was, but then we had a lot of trauma in my family.
Who's they? Who's they?
Teachers, people in authority, I'd fidget at my desk. I was that kid. And what happened when I was raised a very, very fundamentalist Christian kid. which meant 3 times a week at least in church, and a lot of green Jell-O.
A lot of green Jell-O.
A lot of green Jell-O, and a lot of ideology, a lot of dogma, and a lot of very scary to me, rigid stuff. And when my parents divorced when I was 7, we went from hee-haw and popcorn and Incredible Hulk, hanging out on the couch as a family, to not really knowing where my parents were, and when I did see them, if it was going to be violent. And so what happened is basically when I went to 2nd grade, I missed 43 days of school. I remember that. And I had this wonderful teacher, Mrs. Snyder, who would sit and watch me, and she could tell, oh, he's going to cry. And she didn't want me to embarrass myself in front of all the other kids. And so she'd call me out in the hall, and I would just go, she was big, a big woman, and she would just grab my head and just put my head in her chest and just let me cry. And that happened day after day after day. So when I was looking out the windows, I wasn't looking at bunnies and scorpions. I was wondering, what was going to happen to my parents. And so a lot of kids who don't have that experience, whether, they have schedules, they have disciplines, they have the ability to stack on some successes because they're safe. They feel safe. Those kids like myself who don't, we miss that. And so we're just trying to figure out who we are, who our parents are we lovable, why they leave, what's going on. And then we go through puberty and we become adults, and we're these scared, broken little kids in adult bodies. And all of a sudden society says, in order to be responsible and a good human, at least that's what I heard, you got to go to school, get good grades, get a good job. And if you don't earn money, you're not going to be enough. There's something wrong with you if you don't earn enough money. And so I now know, after working with people like E. Patrick, who Aspen Morrow, right, Big E, baby, Tom Burrell, and Dr. Amen, that what happens is literally people's brains wire differently. They wire differently. And so physiologically, my brain is different than other people who didn't have my experience. And so I had the inability to, what they would call, live a harmonious life. I could not figure out how to be a dad, how to be a good husband, and keep the lights on. And I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to write. I'd written a movie. And so what happened is I got married.
Why was that important for you to be an entrepreneur? I mean, why is that important for you to be down that road? I mean, there's a lot of other things you can be doing with your time. Why is it important to be this artist entrepreneur?
So in school, you've got math, science, history. I now know that a lot of the history that what I was taught is just not true. It's just not true. But what I found that was the most peaceful, most serene place was in art class. I loved to write, creative writing, and I loved drawing, and I loved clay. And it seemed like it gave my brain just a break, because when I was in that creative space, and I now know that when you're in a creative space, you're literally co-creating with a higher power, call it God, call it universe, whatever you want to call it. And it feels good. And so it felt great to be in that space. And I always had a curiosity. Why is it, how am I able to be an artist and still survive within society? When we have a society that says you need to be responsible, Mr. Artist Boy, and go be an insurance agent and build yourself a big book of business, and then you get to go be Artist Boy. It's not happening. People are dying long before they ever retire from their good job. So that's why it mattered to me. I could see my parents, and I could see other people in my life at a pretty young age, and realize I don't want that. I don't want that. I didn't understand, and I couldn't really put it into language and communicate it, but I felt it. I felt there's no way I'm going to be like them. And I started identifying who I resonated with. And I resonated with artists. I resonated with musicians at a time when I was very alone, felt lonely, and I had really low self-esteem. Finally, I just shut my door to my bedroom. This is like in junior high. And I kicked on my headphones. And this is when I had some friends who gave me music. The Who. Oh, my God. Led Zeppelin. Oh, my God. Right? And I started hearing these artists and these messages. And and I just really understood that they got it. The artists got it. Everybody else kind of was messed up, but the artists got it. And so that's why it was really important for me to become an entrepreneur, because I started to equate, and I'll tie the knot on this. I was a hippie, long hair, working in a gym back in the day when the big Arnold Schwarzenegger poster with him showing his calf going was on every gym wall. And I was mopping up sweat from one of the machines, and the gym manager came in and said, "You seem like a pretty sharp guy, Troy. I'd like to bend your ear on some business." Yeah. And I'm thinking, are you kidding me, man? I'm a friggin' hippie. I look like Eddie Vedder. And either this guy's hitting on me, or this is going to be an interesting conversation. So, hey, I'll go. Let's go. So we went to the Village Inn, and he started drawing circles on a piece of paper. And like, this circle goes to this circle, and me, you, 642. Like, oh my God, he showed me network marketing. And that looked as close to the best business model I've ever seen in my life.
It's the first business model you've ever seen at that point.
Yeah, Amway for sure. Amway was the best one. The first one, rather. And so I am so excited. I'm like, in my mind, I'm going to tell everybody about Amway. I'm going to have shirts made about Amway. And we're walking out of the Village Inn.
Drank the Kool-Aid you're in, right?
Oh, dude, I drank the Kool-Aid deep, man, and it was bursting through my cells like rays of light. And as I walked out, he said, "You might not want to make the shirts yet." And I said, "Hey, well, how many other people know about this?" And he's like, "Not many." So that's when I realized that people will deceive you to get what they want.
Wow.
So, but
he didn't make you to fly, though, did he?
He didn't make me to fly. And it was a business venture, so we didn't have any debaucherous experiences. It was, but it was the beginning of, I thought it was my way out. I'm going to build this big company, because I started to buy into what other people said, because, it's a very profound and consistent message that the media shares, pours upon us, And when you're unskilled, you just kind of go into what you think is the easiest route, which is the societal standards. And it's not the easiest route. Ultimately, over time, it's the most painful. So I started drawing circles. I cut my hair, shelved my Ozzy albums, and I got a vacuum. Didn't make a dime. But I did.
Was that Kirby?
No, it was whatever Amway made. Oh. It was pretty cool, man. It'd suck a rat right through your carpet pad. Give you an idea where I lived.
A rat through the carpet. There's a lot of rats up there, huh?
Yeah. Spin it around in that little vacuum.
You're going to start your demonstration at the house. You're just went in people's houses. You threw some rats out. I'm going to go around your house. Hire me to get rid of them.
Brother, I had some.
Did you like walk in people's houses and kind of let rats fall out in your bag and stuff? Oh my God, there's a rat. Let me show you how this thing works.
Well, I'm telling you, man. Every time I don't let. If you've got if you're a rainbow salesman or a Kirby salesman, I will not let you in my house. Why? Because I will buy your damn vacuum. I mean, every time they come in, I'm like, oh my God, I gotta have it. It's like,
I'm the same way.
So what happened is I was writing a movie.
Share something with you, Troy, because I don't know if you know this, but I got this thing, and it's got these 3 circles I want to talk to you about after the call. But actually, I had a friend of mine call me, and I was in the Marine Corps at the time, and he called me up, and he started talking about, you need to go check this thing out, and it's my buddy. And I'm like, dude, I was like, yeah, I haven't talked in years. What's going on, And like, hey, man, I got involved in this company. It's a good deal and this and that or whatever. I'm like, all right, cool. So I went down. I drank the Kool-Aid, and that business guy started drawing some circles on the screen, and I was like, oh wow, cool. So I just changed my buying habits, right? Which I didn't know how hard that is, right?
You went from Schlitz to like the magic Kool-Aid.
Magic Kool-Aid. And then I turned around and I saw, I went down to I think it was my wife at the time. I'm single, all right? But just let you know.
Ladies.
Ladies, all right? So I turn around, and this smart wife I had, she looks at me and she says, you know what? All the things at the store are cheaper than this. And I was kind of like,
you just shut up, lady. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't have a cool Brioni suit.
I was just kind of scratching my head a little bit. I'm like, well, she does all the grocery shopping, and she's the one that buys all this stuff. I'm not going to really buy it, So at that point, I'm just kind of like, well, I guess this business venture is pretty much over.
Brother, right? I mean,
I've been there, man. So
well, we attract, people in our life for a reason, man. And I know that a lot of us entrepreneurs, we have women who are like anchored to the ground and we're the balloon,
yeah.
and if they let go,
we're like, Lord knows where we're going to be. But I wanted to thank my buddy for introducing me to that business model, because previous to that, I'd never thought about it before.
Right.
Just like you, I never thought about it, and then all of a sudden I found myself going to Rich Dad Poor Dad. And it was actually the first time I came across Russell Brunson videos online selling. Here's this freaking like baby face kid selling a potato gun. I'm like, what is this? I was like, I don't know what it is, but I want one,
Heck yeah.
And the funny, you want to hear some funny stuff?
Yes.
Like, at that point in time, my buddies and I were shooting real potato guns off, and he was actually a mortarman. So he would shoot real mortars like the
oh my God, Marines.
Marines. So we had this stuff dialed in. I mean, we could have probably rooted around product. They would have kicked Russell products, but Russell knew how to market. So that we did not know how to do. So we were literally shooting potato guns off the water tower like a mile away. We're like anchoring where they got the trajectory and everything. Hilarious. We're drinking beer, shooting potato guns on a Friday night. That's what Marines do.
Dude, right? But that's fun. It's a good time.
It's fun. Good time.
So thank you, Network Marketing, for that path. I agree with you, and I want to share with people that there are some phenomenal network marketing companies out there.
There's some huge opportunities out there.
Beautiful. Yeah, truly. Well, the thing that I share with folks is just understand that I truly believe that it is one of the hardest things. It's work. It's a lot of work.
It's work. And people who treat it as a hobby are going to get hobby-like results. And that's what it really comes down to. I mean, if you treat anything like a business, whether it's your own business, whether it's somebody else's business, whether it's somebody hires you to do a business for them, and if you treat it like a hobby, you're going to get hobby-like results, and you won't be around for a long time. I will say this: one of the things, if you start working with somebody and you start looking around who's in their network and who's been in their network, if they don't have any friends that are greater than 6 months, been around business, but they've been in business 10 years or something like that, or whatever they want to say, you want to start really questioning yourself, like, kind of, who is this guy?
Right.
Because I've gotten burnt in the past with, working with people, and all of a sudden, when you hear the comment of like, oh, well, you're like the 10th person we've hired to do this. Danger, Will Robinson.
Okay, right.
Walk, pull the ejection string and just give the money back. Get away from that person as fast as possible. A lot of times. There's one common denominator in that situation, and that's that person, not the 10 other people. I mean, those 10 other people probably don't even know each other, but their bodies are buried somewhere probably on the person's spot.
Yeah, right. No, for sure. And that's, I think, the key with not just that industry, but any industry. Know thyself. You've got to get to know who you are. And that's one of the greatest gifts that I was given through that experience. I was turned on to the book Think and Grow Rich, The Magic of Thinking Big, just on and on. These great books that helped me to discover who I was. And it was hard for me, man, because I had a really, really low self-esteem for a long time on a lot of my adult life. And so to get out there and act like I was successful when I felt so fraudulent was really, really hard. The cool thing is the universe will give you, God will give you what you need, and breakthroughs to break down. What happened for me with that 30, 40, 50,000 a week experience was it was in the mid 90s, and I was in a nutritional network marketing company called Nutrition for Life. It was a really cool company. And I was kind of getting some, spreading my wings, man, and starting to really get into
your muscles.
Yeah, I was flexing my
muscles. Let's go. Let's see them.
Yeah. Woo. All right. Look, so this is I'm excited about this one. This is a Maxfield Parrish. Are you familiar with who Maxfield Parrish is?
I don't know anything about that.
Okay. So when you go look at Maxfield Parrish, this is a beautiful, meaningful tattoo. Some of you are going like, that's it. Slam the laptop. Not going to listen anymore. That's kind of something to work through, by the way.
Yeah, tattoo.
Right. So and I've got tattoos on the inside. But what happened was I was in this networking company. I was building a pretty decent team. That's where I started learning about dream boards. And we built dream boards. I had a dream book. I carried it around. And I remember my dream book. I had a Lexus, I had a house, and I had $5,000 a month residual income. And this was in the mid 90s. And what happened is in that company, I got a car bonus. I didn't have the 5,000 residual or the house yet, but that company was at the exact same time when the internet was starting to take off. You know, Hotmail just got bought, and it was like crazy what was going on. We started talking about e-commerce, you know, way back before Amazon, way before any of those conversations. And people started getting excited, and so did I, about what was going to happen. You know, people probably still remember when I'm not going to put my credit card on the internet. How often do you ever hear that today? Never. It's just what happened, right? So there was a company that came out that capitalized on network marketing and e-commerce, and it was a company called BigSmart.com. And I was so broke at that time because in the midst of the, let me put this the timeline right.
When you're so broke, like how broke is broke?
No. So yeah, I had my car bonuses, but I had lost volume. My volume had gone down. And so I had a really nice Dodge truck, and I had a really cool 97 Jeep Wrangler. And then I lost rank in the company. So my income, not only did my income go down, but the company handed back the payment book. So I had to start making payments on the truck and the Jeep. And my income went down, right?
They didn't tell you that when you signed up.
That was in the fine print. But that happened. Angela and I had Madison was brand new little baby, and I was stressed out. And man, I tell you what, some of my my ways of checking out in high school just really cranked it up, man. Some of the most relief I got was with beer, alcohol.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Anything to make you
alcohol? Really?
No. It's something that that you can buy it at the store. It's pretty. Really? It's in the back cooler.
I think they have one on my corner. So
right. So what happened is I knew that I needed to earn money, and so I went to other things that helped me stay awake longer. Right. And again,
like 5-hour energy drinks.
Yes. Yeah. Made in a lab south of the border. That kind of stuff.
South of the border.
Colombia. Stuff from Colombia.
And
so I imported these supplements from Colombia, and I ignored my wife. I ignored my little baby girl, and I just went vunk all into this business. Now I had created a network of people in the nutritional company, right? And so I just went and I did what so many broke, desperate people do. I just poached off everybody's downlines, and I pulled them into my new deal, this new e-commerce network marketing company. And I got some people from successful people from other network marketing companies, and I got them in there in the nick of time because I was acting. I was a facade. I was just burning up energy to get the foundation in place because inevitably I was going to crash, and I did. But in that instance, what happened is I put some top dog from Excel in one leg, put my entire networking company in the other leg. My nutritional company went away. I annihilated somebody else's business in that nutrition company. I'm not proud to say that, but hey, broke and desperate. And we went from a foreclosure notice on our desk. And I now know that you don't put a foreclosure notice right in front of your eyes and your desk, but I did. I didn't know how the mind works. To the first month we made $10,000. Second month we made, oh my goodness. Ultimately, in the third month we had $110,000. And people would say, "Oh, you made it." Oh my God. I thought all my life that when I arrived, I paid cash for a Lexus. I got the Lexus, paid for a house. All this money coming in, and I watched relationships change, close personal relationships, trying to borrow money, best friends that I didn't even know now are in my life. And I really saw the insidious negative side of people's perception of money. And then I had the ability to buy a lot of supplements from South, from
Colombia.
Right. And I felt horrible because I had this giant hole in my soul that I just thought I was going to feel better. And so I had all this money, and that hole was just like just a sound of it was just horrible, and it felt nasty. And then I had this nasty addiction, and that company went away. I had lent my best friend $160,000. Now, mind you, within that year, my marriage was really in tatters, and it was so emotional and sad. We had all this money, and then I gave this jackass, $160,000. Now, I now know that if he hadn't shown up in my life and been a participant in my education that I wouldn't be who I am today. But I tell you what, the pain of that, and then that company going away, and then having 50,000, you know, that owed to the IRS, that was in a 6-month run. We earned $500,000. Was just prime ground for a guy like me to break down, and I did. And I'll skip that time frame.
Let's talk about that for a second. Not getting off the easy. So you just loaned $160,000 out to your unquote best friend, right?
Yeah. That's when I learned. That's when I learned what sociopath means. Really, is definitely a sociopath.
That's a hell of an education.
Yeah, you pay for your education regardless, period, no matter what, whether it's in time or your life.
Pay for your education along the way there, Troy?
Hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I would pay it again if I could have back the time, you know. And I don't regret or choose to relive anything. But it is very true that now I have a life backpack full of missed moments, and I don't dwell on them. I don't beat myself up for them anymore, but I do allow myself from time to time, when it's appropriate, in a meditation or a balance, to feel those things. Because if I don't feel them, then I am destined to repeat them. And so that's the stuff that money comes and goes, but time is irreplaceable. And so that's one of the things that I'm so passionate about, is to help other people. Make your own mistakes, but please don't make these. You don't have to make these, you know, and just giving people a clearer path to what I believe that the human spirit really deserves here on the planet while we're here, rather than being held hostage by an electronic media that is constantly telling us that we're not enough and selling us shit, pardon me, but shit we don't need. It's the way it is.
So Troy, where was the lowest point of lows along the way when you just hit rock bottom and you're like when you look back along the way at your life, you're like, man, this is where I knew I was. I mean, looking back on it now, you're like, that's that point I'm never going back to. What were you doing at that point? What was going on?
It's easy. It was a point where I had done everything that I knew to do, that was within my life toolbox at the time, to be a real boy, to be a good man. And I had failed by my own perception. I was addicted. I lost the ability to think, let alone manage my life in any other way. And that voice in my head was screaming so loud, see, I told you so. I told you so. And that was just a devastatingly low, painful place in my life. And that was the absolute closest I ever came to like legitimately getting off the ride. And I know there's that still.
You said getting off the ride. There's a lot of Marines out here possibly listening to this. I mean, what are you talking about?
Well, I mean, I'll be very direct with you. It was, I had a 38. I was in my garage at 1:30 in the morning. There's a tip for you. Again, supplements from Colombia. And I was just done. I had burned everything out. My nervous system. I had played every chip I had to try to be good in life. And I was literally squeezing the trigger in my garage, and I could feel it. I mean, it was looking back, it's like, whew, miracles do happen, because I was squeezing the trigger, and the voice in my head was, just do it, you freaking not pleasant names that I was calling myself. Just do it, just do it. And I had this, they call it a moment of clarity, man. I got this feeling like I got when I was a little kid out in nature, of just connected. And it just downloaded. It wasn't words. It just downloaded. This isn't it for you. This isn't it. You're going to be okay. And I remember arguing with that knowing. It's like, no, man, I'm done. I got you. And it was just I got you. And so it wasn't long after that, thank God, my family was able to get me into a rehab center here in Idaho. And then I was shown, this is what's really fascinating. There's a big gap of adult life that was just so painful and fraudulent. You know, it's just so painful and fraudulent. I now know. And when I walked into that recovery center, before I even met anybody or spoke with anybody, there was this feeling that washed over me that I was safe, that I was going to be okay. The same feeling I had that night I was pulling the trigger, the same feeling I had when I was a little kid. And then I was blown away by these steps that I was to take, and to confess things that I would never share with another human being, because I'm the only one who did that shameful stuff. baloney, man. There's nothing that I've done or you've done or anybody watching this has done that hasn't been done before. A million different ways to Friday, baby. You know, you're not alone. But I had, through the process of working steps, the courage to actually share that with another human being. And each time I did, that load got lighter. And so as I began to feel better and started to understand that I have control, I do have the ability to control some things in my life, you know, that my mind can work for me, then I wanted to be able to share that with people. I wanted to share that beyond just the rooms of the recovery rooms. And because when I did walk out of that recovery center, I literally had the inability to read a paragraph and retain it. I had anxiety so massively, like 24/7, anxiety, fear of the future, anxiety, so bad that I couldn't look you in the eye because of the shame. I would be asked to read something in the rooms in recovery, and I'd start to read it and I'd start shaking and I'd hand it off and I'd leave. And then I had to argue with myself, oh, you're never going back in there. That's embarrassing as hell, you know? And I had to, that was the extent of my courage in 2003, to have the courage to walk back into a room of recovery and sit back in those rooms after feeling so ashamed of myself. And so it took a long time. It took about 18 months for me to really realize, wow, my brain is back, but definitely different, because, you know, you carry the scars forward, but it doesn't mean that you can't have the best and then some, you know, downgraded maybe a little bit, but with the wisdom and experience and the new ways of living, have an experience that's 10x what it was before. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And when you look back and you're at that point and you're at that low point, what would you say to yourself if you were to walk out and see yourself in the garage? What would you say to yourself to break through in that state for somebody else who's out there thinking possibly the same thing of like, man, I've screwed up. You know, I ruined a marriage. I ruined my kids. I ruined myself. I screwed up my friend's life. I screwed up other people's lives. I mean, all that stuff you just shared. If you, I mean, there's, thank you for sharing that, by the way. Just
You're welcome.
Open and honest. What would you say to an individual who's out there who feels like they don't have any hope on their own?
So, you know, this is why I hope people can really receive this and really understand what I'm saying. I was taught, I'm really blessed to be friends with Tony Robbins' son, Jarek. Now, granted, he's got a full life, and I became friends with Jarek because I went to 14 different events with him where he taught and led in about a 2-year time frame. That's a lot of events, you guys. I was really committed to identifying me, and we walked through a process of doing, you know, working with our inner child. And I'm telling you, I love the Eagles, but when they say find your inner child and kick us to the last, yeah, there's a little inner child. There's a controlling child that's running the show for most adults. They don't realize it. And so what I was taught there with Jarek was to go in and meet myself. And this is what I know. If any of us was to witness one of our experiences, and we've all got at least one experience where our parents just didn't get it right. They were probably stressed out, freaked out, scared too, and you needed them, I needed them, and they did something that caused us to put a label on ourselves. Oh, I'm not worthy of being heard. Oh, I must not be good enough. Oh, now I have to perform to be, you know, daddy's little man. You know, and so what I've been doing a lot lately that I learned from Jarek, and I've taken it to another level through working with Joe Dispenza, working with psycho-cybernetics, different things like that, and Ross Cook, learning to balance, is I go in now, and just like I would in that garage, and this is what I highly recommend to everybody who's going through some crisis right now. Hold on and just try this stuff. I go into meditation, I close my eyes, I build my gratitude, I clean up what needs to be cleaned up with other people and maybe negative thoughts, and then I go to work with me. And what does that look like? I go back to when I was 4, and those moments where I can identify where I wasn't parented the way I needed to be parented. And I go do that work.
And if you're sitting in the garage right now and you're walking out and it's 1:30 in the morning, what would you say to that Troy who's sitting out in the garage to pull him out of that state from pulling the trigger?
I don't know if I would say anything. I would walk up and I'd throw my arms around myself and I'd give myself a giant hug and I just hold myself tight. And I would just, that's what I would do, man. I get emotional thinking about it because it's, we just want to feel connected, man. People think it's a car or it's a, it's a success through money. We just want to feel heard and connected and like that we matter, and so that's what I would do. I'd go out and I just hold myself until hopefully the gun didn't fire when it hit the ground, but I just hold myself. And then I'd walk with me back in and we'd start working on it. And that's what I do in meditation now. I go back to those points in my life through in my history, and I can see myself with a nappy little perm.
About how you're helping other people do that right now, and what you're doing on the human optimization side of things, and what you're doing in life and business and stuff, and how people can learn more about you and what you're doing.
Sure. You've seen it. A lot of people have seen like Russell Brand talking about meditation. They're hearing from Mark Divine, The Way of the Seal. He talks about working with the mind. It's out there. People, what I coach folks to do is first and foremost, shut off the TV. Shut off the TV. Doesn't mean you can't watch media, but get the book Power versus Force by David Hawkins. I know you love that book.
Oh yeah.
Daryl. Get the book Power versus Force and go to the scale where it talks about vibration and energy, and then notice what you're consuming visually and auditorially through media. And you'll notice that anything 200 or below, 199 and below, is literally depleting you. It's killing you, right? So choose media that vibrates higher than 200. The higher the better. Same thing with associations in your life. Good people, hey, good people. But now we know too much. And this is my coaching program. This is how it works. I now know that just by what a person is thinking, that they are changing me on a physical level. So I choose to surround myself with people who think lovely, great, grateful thoughts and understand that we're connected and are sending me positive energy, or just loving themselves, because that just by being in their presence, I'm being healed. And I know there's a lot of macho guys out there. I come from a very, very redneck background and family. Boys don't cry. Don't talk about that, and that's killing us, guys. I'm telling you, it's killing people in the country. And so I'm that guy who I'm okay with sharing the truth, the way it is.
The truth. And the truth.
It's documented.
That's the name of your book, dude. The Truth by True Oils.
Right. Well, I've got some things in the works, but it's I have to be. I want to be in a place where I can be congruent with whatever I share in the marketplace. I don't ever share with people and ask them to do something that I'm not doing myself. I do spend. It's fascinating how I used to find when I would spend an hour in a recovery meeting, how I get 2 extra hours of productivity in my work. Now I do 45 minutes and 45 minutes, 45 minutes meditating in the morning and 45 at night. And the doors that open up and the freedom that I have, the feeling is so incredible. And so I coach folks that it's the opposite of what we were taught. It's exactly opposite. It's not force, grind. It's allow and flow and observe. And that's the way it is. And when you can learn to listen to your own body and you can listen to your own intuition, life becomes very easy. And so that's it. That's what we coach folks. Now, when you're working with the brain.
One of the golden nuggets, Troy, that somebody could take away from having a conversation with you.
I would, the golden nuggets is learn to say, I think that one of the most profound changes a person can have is to get to a place where they can close their eyes, learn some breathing techniques like box breathing, get the app pranayama, learn to breathe, get integrated, and then close your eyes and conjure up yourself. Visualize yourself in front of you. And then notice it, give yourself a hug and see how it feels. And if it feels awkward, that's where you start. Go to work on you. Because worthiness wasn't doled out in percentages like Daryl Hill, you get 95%, Troy, you get 30%, you get 10%. We're worthy. The only thing that changes that, the way we perform or we are showing up in the world, is what we believe we deserve. And we will always, always create scenarios and experiences to get us back to high or low what we think of ourselves. Like Daryl, you can show up in a person's life and be genuinely giving them high-level love and on all of its many forms. But if they don't believe they're worthy of love, They will fight you. They will be unfaithful. They will scream. They will break stuff, whatever, to get back to what they believe they deserve. And if you stay around that long enough, what will happen is you will begin to behave in a way that is congruent with what they think of themselves, and that is intolerable and not okay. We've got to be courageous enough to notice when that's happening, separate ourselves from not good or bad people. That's not what I'm saying. It's well and unwell. It's well and unwell, skill and unskilled. So that's what I would say. Close your eyes, wrap your arms around yourself. And if there's any bit of tension, just keep going in and being friends with yourself.
I love it, man. That's so true, 100%. Troy, what's the best way for somebody to reach out to you?
So we've got thewellnessworkshops.com is probably the best place. It's very much in beta at this point, but if you'd like to get on a newsletter where we just send you high energy, high vibrational media and communications, that's the best place, thewellnessworkshops.com.
Okay, cool. And we'll post that link as well on the website, and I'll post that below anywhere you want, Troy. Guys, he'll be available. You can reach out to him. And Troy, I appreciate you, man.
I appreciate you too, Daryl. And I'm really excited to have you participate with our community and walk the community through that writing exercise and that visualization exercise that you helped me with a little over a year ago. Profound. What showed up.
The best part is when you sent me a message and you're like, you're not going to believe what happened.
Right.
And I was like, I don't know. Was it this? And you're just kind of like, you're like, yeah. And I was like, well, what were you expecting?
Right. Perfect. What do you expect? We get what we expect. And so,
gentlemen, ladies, you get what you expect, and you got to program your mind, as you heard it best from Troy Owens today. Appreciate it.
You're a brilliant man. Love you, brother. Thank you.